Welcome to the Wine Zone. My name is Konrad Ejbich and this is Pro&Kon. My guest today is Jim Cuddy, who's probably better known for his musical notes than he is for his tasting notes. Well, Jim has been a guest judge today at the Lieutenant Governor's Awards of Excellence in Ontario Winemaking. Jim's not here just as a pretty face. Jim has a genuine passion for wine, and he's been following the goings-on of the Canadian industry for as long as I've known him, and that's sometimes. Well, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
So, do you have any first impressions about the wines that we tasted today?
Well, certainly doing this gives you an appreciation of how difficult this job is, because that's a lot of wines, and it becomes difficult to distinguish. You know, I had a tough time with the Riesling flight, so it's a difficult job. But I really enjoyed the discussion. The discussion's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled. It is. I don't want to talk about it in terribly positive sense, but it is a job that we love doing. And yes, it is difficult.
Oh, it is difficult.
So, tell me about your path from, how would I call you, regular guy to wine geek.
Yeah. Wine enthusiast.
Okay.
Because every time I get with real wine people, I realize how little I know. But it starts out with, when you start out in a band, beer is your world. You get paid in beer. You can't believe that you're getting free beer. It's so exciting. And then, 10, 12 years into it, I couldn't have another beer. I was so sick of that liquid. Road manager and myself decided we would just start to look at wine. We bought a couple of magazines, and those were the days. So we were doing it about 1991. So they had been great vintages from Bordeaux at that 85, 88, 89, and you could buy those first growth wines for about $50 then. So we'd put 25 each in, and we'd buy one, and we'd drink it out of the plastic cups in the back of the bus, and we'd look at the notes and say, I can taste that. Can you taste that? Can you taste that cigar box? Can you taste that? And I know that garnet ring. I got all that. So you know what? It became a passion for both of us, and because we travel so much, it's a really easy thing to facilitate.
Right. So nowadays, do you have a rider in your contracts to include specific provisions of wine for the backstage?
We do, but then I've come to the point where now that I've tried and experienced so many wines, it's difficult for somebody to buy for the band. So we just do the wine shopping ourselves
and bring it in on your own.
Right, where you can. We have so many methods of looking after it. It's unbelievable.
So what are some favorites? Reds, whites, Bordeaux, Rieslings, ice wines, sparkling, champagne.
So Bordeaux's are kind of out of our realm anymore. Italian wines we drink a lot of, because we've traveled a lot. Italian wines, Spanish wines, California wines. I'll be doing some Ontario Niagara gigs this summer, and so I'll be drinking a lot of those wines from.
So it's basically whatever's in the neighborhood.
You know what? I think it's whatever makes sense at this point. I've had lots of star wines, and now I like to experience something of the country, or just something that I've pulled out that are my favorites.
Right. So give me an example of a favorite.
My favorite would be Barolo, and anything by a Conterno would be my favorite.
Okay.
So I like traditionally made Barolos, and those would be my go-to wines if I could only have one wine.
Big.
Well, sometimes, but sometimes big, but sometimes also very elegant. I think some of those vineyards, and I love the fact one time we were at Aldo Conterno's vineyard, and we were buzzing on the door to see if we could get him. And they're going, Guizzo. And so my sister-in-law was saying, we want a tour. And they said, there's nobody here. And I love that. So I went to the vineyard and had a grape, and I thought, well, I have just had something from the 2010 vineyard.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that it was a big, world-renowned vineyard, winery, and there was probably only 2 members of the family in the winery. It wasn't a gigantic corporate deal.
Right, because they don't do these tasting rooms and come in and
and I think if somebody had been there, they would have said, sure, come on in, but we don't have this set up. So I love the agricultural nature of it, and also the elegance of the product.
When you're touring, and obviously you do quite a bit, do you make a point of finding an extra day to visit a wine region or a winery? Do you when you're planning a tour, do you say, hey, there's that Dr. Lucen over there, not too far from where we're playing in Frankfurt.
You know, we don't do a lot of. I go to Italy every year because I do a charity trip that I co-host a charity trip that raises money for Olympic athletes. So that means I'm holed up in just outside of Siena for 2 weeks every May. Mm-hmm. So I always do a lot of shopping from Florence. I do Siena, and we ride bikes to Montalcino, and so often I just grab something. But so that the last 4 years we've gone to Spain, and I have fallen in love with Spanish wines. And I fall in love with Spanish wines because of the situations you find yourself in. It's the little diners with the salted fish and, you know, pull down some beautiful Grenache. So that California, I'm more a purchaser than a winery visitor. I found that I'm not sure if I can go to any more wineries to have them tell me their wine's the best wine in the world.
Of course. Or come see our bottling line. You definitely want to see our bottling line.
I know. I was like, So I'm a more purchaser, but I certainly know my stores around the world where I get my stuff.
Purchaser. How about producer? Now, you know, we've seen a large trend here, whether it's the Tragically Hip licensing or Jason Priestley having a winery or Dan Aykroyd involved. Any chances we're going to see a Cuddy Chardonnay or a Blue Rodeo Red?
Well, you know what? I'd love to. I think I've come to the point where I would love to be a part of that. And there have been a few preliminary discussions with somebody in Niagara to do it. So,
excellent.
So I think that would be the right thing for
release
me.
any
No, I can't. I mean, it's not even for me to release. It would be for them to release.
Of course. Well, that's amazing. I don't know what to say. This has been terrific. The wines were terrific. Seeing you again has been terrific. Thank you for doing this.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Konrad.
Thank you.
It's very nice.
And thank you for watching. Tune in again. We'll be back. We're back as often as we can. Right down at the bottom of that screen, there's a little subscribe button. Subscribe to that, and you'll get notifications of all our episodes of Pro and Con. Thank you, and see you again. Bye.